Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Echo at Africa. On today's show, we'll learn how stoves in Rwanda protect the environment. We also present a catamaran that's not only made for sailing, but also for collecting trash from the sea. And then we see how the residents of Gauteng in South Africa are coping with the after effects of mining activities. Welcome. We begin in the far north of the continent in Morocco, where about 75% of the nation is dependent on agriculture for a living. Water is crucial to their survival, but poorly managed resources are threatening biodiversity and resulting in rural poverty. For the past 2 years, some researchers along the country's coastal mountains have come up with an innovation called Cloud Fisher Project. Now, this involves capturing fog from the clouds as an alternative source of water for those living in the rural areas.
At Mount Boutmazgida, it's usually late afternoon when the fog pulls in. It's a familiar sight for the people who live here. This region in southwestern Morocco spends about 10 days a month shrouded in fog. Not everyone here likes the fog, but Peter Trautwein, an industrial designer from Germany, comes here especially because of it.
It's like a creature that's hard to capture and put your finger on. The fog comes and then it's gone again. But it brings something with it, and that's water, potable water of a very high quality. Ever since I realized that, I see the fog very differently.
The wind pushes the fog against the net, where it gathers into droplets. The droplets start to fall and they're collected. Techniques for obtaining water have been used in other parts of the world, but not with fog collectors like these. Peter Trautwein was commissioned by the German Water Foundation to perfect the technology. Next, they'll set up a big installation. It's well worth the effort. Rainfall is scarce in the area around Mount Boutmazgida. During the dry season, there's often an acute water shortage. Mohammad Hamouali helped build the fog collector. He knows what it's like when water is scarce. Hamouali grew up here. As a boy, he often spent hours every day leading the family's donkey to a spring to fetch water. Now he's an expert at building the new fog collectors. Hamouali will also help build the large installation.
Before I saw it, I thought the idea was very strange. I asked myself, is it really possible to turn fog into water? I'd never heard of such a thing, and I couldn't really picture it.
Today, this picture is becoming less and less common. Some locals have already sold their donkeys. Dar Sikhmad, a regional NGO, first came up with the idea of tapping the fog on Mount Boutmazgida. They began experimenting with nets 10 years ago. In 2013, the German Water Foundation joined the project. At first, they had many questions. What kind of mesh fabric is best? What's the best way to position the net? The team also wanted to make sure the system would be easy to build. Foundation, metal frame, and ropes have to be sturdy enough to withstand strong wind. A lot of attention to detail went into making this project a success.
Then you take a rubber expander, hook it back here, stretch this a bit, and then you adjust it all a bit. Now it's nice and tight, and you can see how it will move with the wind.
The system includes these tipping counters. They measure the daily catch. That data is analyzed by researchers at the Technical University in Munich, Germany, every day.
We measure according to what's called a fog event. The amounts have varied quite a bit. Using our best mesh fabric, we've been able to gather about 22 litres of water per square metre, and that's quite a lot.
An installation like this could be used anywhere in the world where fog is common. A panel cost between 9,000 and 13,000 euros, depending on its size, the local price of material, and how much can be done by the local communities. The water will travel from Mount Bout-Musgida through a network of reservoirs, filters, cisterns, and pipes until it finally reaches the villages. Monir Abbar is the technical manager for the project. He monitors the distribution system that has been supplying 5 villages during the pilot phase. Soon, more villages will be added to the network. The water meets the standards of the World Health Organization. But before it arrives at the village, it will be mixed with other water.
Water from fog doesn't contain any minerals, but we want our potable water to have some minerals, so we mix some groundwater into the fog water.
These days, Mohammad Hamwali uses well water only for the animals. For the past year, his family has been getting drinking water straight from the tap. Thanks to the fog collector, his siblings won't have to spend hours a day fetching water.
So the era of using lots of wood and charcoal for cooking is still present in some parts of Africa. Traditional stoves consist of just 3 stones and a ton of wood. This leads to deforestation and other environmental problems in countries such as Rwanda. A project by women and environmental organizations like Atmosphere from Rwanda shows just how easy a solution could be and the alternatives that exist.
Chopping down trees here like this is illegal. This man's wife holds watch to make sure they aren't discovered. This land belongs to the Rwandan government. Even though it's under protection, there are few trees left. People here need wood for cooking. Most people have to buy their wood, and it's expensive. Josephine Uwi-Ngoma lives in a village about 60 kilometers from the capital, Kigali. Almost all her life she was using the traditional cooking method. It requires 3 big rocks and a lot of wood. On an open stove like this, cooking a pot of beans takes hours.
We used to suffer a lot. I used to send the children looking for wood. Instead of going to school, they would be looking for wood.
Using a traditional cooking fire is very labor-intensive. Josephine Uwi-Ngoma has 7 children. Beans are a staple in the local diet, and they take hours to cook properly. But now there's an alternative. Out here in the countryside, these women are working for the Safer Rwanda organization. The metal they are using comes from Germany, and the stoves they're building were also developed there. The stoves use very little wood. 20,000 of them have already been sold in Rwanda. The staff are all women. Many women in Rwanda live under difficult circumstances, and work is badly needed. It's one of the legacies of the Rwandan genocide of 1994, when more than 1 million people were killed in the war between the Hutu and Tutsi people.
It really affected them so much, to the extent that most of the women became widows. No husbands to take care of them. They had orphans to take care of. This has been the main challenge to the women, especially who survived 1994 genocide.
Even today, there are still more women than men in Rwanda. They bear much of the burden of daily life, including the cooking. Alan Mubiru from the Atmosphere Environmental Organization spends part of his time visiting women in the villages. He explains that the stoves will make their work easier, save wood, and help protect the environment. For a rural farmer, a new stove represents about 2 or 3 days of earnings, but the investment pays off.
A bundle of wood used to last 4 to 6 days, but now it lasts for 3 weeks.
By using efficient stoves, you economize on the amount of wood that you would use. Every time you burn wood, there's a lot of CO2 that goes into the atmosphere. So by using less wood, you emit less carbon dioxide. Approximately each one of these stoves, like this one, saves around 4 tons of CO2 per year.
Rwanda's population has been growing rapidly. Today, some 11 million people live in Rwanda, making it one of the world's most densely populated countries. To survive, people here need food and firewood. Under difficult conditions, environmental protection often takes a back seat. Signs of that are evident everywhere. In the spring, the land looks lush and fertile, but weather conditions are growing more extreme. Part of Alan Mubiru's job is educating people on the importance of environmental protection. Illegal logging, he explains, will only make people's lives here more difficult.
You cannot predict with certainty when the plowing season is supposed to start, when the harvesting is supposed to start. Sometimes the rain is too much, that the crops, instead of growing, they're just rotting in the gardens. Or sometimes the rain is not enough and the crops are just dying or wilting before they can even produce the fruits.
This farmer is gathering leftover twigs. She already has a new stove, so one bundle of firewood will carry her through several weeks of cooking. That's a big benefit, especially since none of the trees here can be logged legally.
How do you ensure that the ash from the things you burn become useful to Earth? Some young designers in Spain have come up with an awesome way of ensuring our own immortality. That's in a manner of speaking. They have invented an eco-friendly organic urn containing a seed that will eventually grow into a tree. It's an ingenious way, if not downright otherworldly way, to do your bit.
What if you could live on after death as a tree? Roger and Gérard Molinet are making this possible. They produce biodegradable urns containing tree seeds. The ashes go into the urn along with soil and a seed. The seed feeds on the nutrients in the ashes. The urn collects data about sunlight and moisture and sends it to your mobile phone. So it's easier to grow a healthy tree. Within a couple of years, human ashes turn into new green life. And many relatives find trees more comforting than a tombstone. We like that. If you are also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
As a large producer and manufacturer of plastics, plastic disposal is one of Germany's greatest challenge. Even more, plastics end up in the sea and fishes are becoming intoxicated. What's more, it could end up in the food chain and have unexpected consequences for people. There's only one solution: to collect and dispose of it properly so that it doesn't end up at the bottom of the sea forever.
The view is beautiful at first glance, but this small bay on the Indian Ocean is full of trash, including large amounts of plastic that's carried out to sea at high tide. Researchers in northern Germany are examining what happens to it in the ocean. Around half sinks to the ocean floor, to a depth of up to 2,500 meters. On the surface of the water and the beach, there's direct sunlight, wind, sand abrasion and pounding waves. In the deep ocean, there isn't any light. It's cold and temperatures don't fluctuate much, so little happens there. It's almost impossible to retrieve waste from the depths of the ocean, but it's easy to get it from the surface. You just need the right removal method. And one's currently being developed at a small shipyard in Lübeck. Nets can be mounted on the hull of this aluminium catamaran. We collect waste that's bigger than 2.5 centimeters. That allows algae to survive. We drive very slowly, just 4 kilometers an hour. We don't take sea life from the water. In places like Cambodia or China, we see huge quantities, so it's not even worth taking the net out. We just use the net to push the plastic on shore. The plastic fighters call their vessel the Manatee. It's set to go into action this year wherever it's needed most, probably in Asia and Africa.
It's not like in Deutschland where it is being taken care of, or where you have a fund that you can bring it back and then get some money for that. This will also encourage people, to return their plastic back. But in Nigeria, they don't have such things, so everything is waste.
The designers have made it possible to dismantle the catamaran so it can be transported to hotspots around the world. It fits into 2 shipping containers. That means you have to be very precise, so the various parts can be taken apart and then reassembled again. The catamaran will run on solar power. And if the prototype proves a success, the marine protection activists would like to build additional vessels to collect waste.
In Nigeria, plant-derived medication from leaves, stalks, and the barks of trees are patronized by many. The traditional medicines, agbo and dogoyaro, amongst many others, are believed to have antifungal, antibacterial, antioxidant, and antimalarial properties. The World Health Organization, in its report, says about 80% of residents of some African countries use traditional herbal medicines to treat their ailments. Now, working with the notion that green medicine is inexpensive, a company in Benin Republic uses local plants to produce a herbal tonic to protect against malaria.
Benin is a country with a great variety of plants. The API Benin company uses some for medicinal purposes. Which ones exactly, the company won't say. The fear of being copied is very high. API Benin produces over 50 herbal medicines. The knowledge has been handed down through generations of healers. The malaria treatment, known as API Palou, also has its roots in traditional medicine.
For us, it's great to experience this moment in Africa, especially in Benin. We're now able to produce effective drugs. They're a local African response to local African problems.
So far, API Palou is an approved treatment for malaria in 5 countries in West and Central Africa. Thanks to exports, more than 300 employees now work for the company. In 2014, it earned 500 million CFA francs, which is approximately 760,000 euros. Money that is urgently needed for infrastructure. In the rainy season, the trucks that deliver API Benin's medicines regularly get stuck in the mud of unpaved roads. Traffic only flows again in the business centre Cotonou, about 100 kilometers away. Valentine Egon started the green medicine in Benin 25 years ago. The remedy against malaria is a source of great pride to him.
In Africa, 3,000 people die from malaria every day. As a researcher, you cannot close your eyes and wait for the solutions to come from elsewhere. That's why we decided to fight against this disease ourselves. To do so, we use herbs known to our parents and ancestors.
The API drugs are sold by the company's own pharmacies. So far, there are 300 nationwide. The capsules against malaria are purely herbal, Egon says, and have no side effects.
Ours cost €1.50, theirs cost €10. That's the difference. Another is, of course, that we're close to nature. You can say we are plants. Well, they represent molecules and synthesis. Nowadays, people want plants.
The people of Cotonou are happy to buy the medicine. In addition to the effect, the price is also a decisive factor for people with an average per capita income below €800 a year.
Mother Earth is loaded with many resources, and when mined, they have been known to change the lives of many positively. But what about the after effects? The residents of Gauteng district in South Africa, like many in other parts of Africa, are having to deal with the results of these activities of their fellow men. They are now contending with the after effects of mining for gold and other precious materials, even though the mines have been shut.
The name of the South African province Gauteng means place of gold. For over a century, gold mining has been the cornerstone of the economy here. But a precious commodity to some, it is causing trouble for others. When mines are abandoned, water may flow in, triggering a chemical reaction with sulfate in the ground and turning to acid. As the water leaks into streams and groundwater, it becomes a severe hazard for the environment and local communities.
There are many communities that are living in areas that are affected by acid mine drainage. We have, during the more than 130 years of gold mining, we have created the largest gold and uranium mining basin in the world, which is now flooded with acid mine water.
The government is now trying to find a solution for the thousands of people who are suffering. The Central Basin Acid Treatment Plant removes sulfate from the water. By 2020, they plan to make this acidic brew clean enough for people to drink. During the presentation of the plant, it becomes clear the government is proud of the project.
The short-term intervention has been successfully completed and will now be seamlessly integrated into a sustainable long-term solution. This planned intervention will therefore turn the MD problem into a long-term sustainable solution.
This is one of 3 plants in Gauteng province. The vexing question is, though, who will bear the costs? According to the Water Ministry, the long-term plan will require around $760 million. 2/3 are to be paid by mining companies, 1/3 by end consumers. However, many mines responsible for the damage are no longer operational. Present-day mines like Sibanye, the largest gold mining company in South Africa, think it's unfair that they have to pay for damage caused by others.
It's a legacy issue. It's mining over 100 years, over 100 different mining companies, and we honestly are the last men standing. So from 100 mining companies, I mean, there's only about 3% of that left.
The acid drainage is just one of the issues that operating mines are currently facing. Thousands of miners who got ill at work are filing lawsuits against their employers. At least regarding the water, mining companies are not going to get away without paying, if it's up to the South African Department for Water and Sanitation.
We are working together with the Department of Mineral Resources to ensure that we are able to pursue those mining houses that are still in existence. We will not give up on that.
as has been indicated with the recent case around asbestos. And if they are out there, most certainly we will pursue them so that they are able to be brought to book and they are able to make good in terms of the pollution that they have left behind and that we are now dealing with.
While the battle continues on the political level, locals are still being affected. It will take years for communities in Gauteng to get clean water.
And that's a wrap on today's edition of the show. I want to thank you for being a part of it. I'd like to encourage you to visit our website for more on our environmental coverage. You can also send us your mails to the email addresses showing on your screen or our social media platforms. Send us your comments. Let's know how you're doing your bit to affect your environment, or it could be your neighbor or your friend. Plus, we would like to tell your story. Till we bring you another edition of the show, same time next week. Bye-bye.